So again, I think Manny's the only one of only one in physiology. I'm going to complicate this a little bit more in physiology, but if you get the basics, you're going to be good to go. Okay. So, and we ought to be taking those tests at about the same time. So this should really help you. Okay. All right. So, first thing is I want you to understand that I'm drawing a feedback loop here. So let me just draw another way that we look at feedback loops. In case you haven't seen this, we usually have a set point or variable. And we have a normal range of function. And so we're either above that set point or we're below that set point, and we're always trying to reverse the trend back to normal. Okay? That's what negative feedback loop does. Hopefully, if you've had anatomy, you understand what I just said. If you haven't had anatomy, you're getting it now, what a negative feedback loop is. It always reverses a trend back to normal. So, let me give you a couple of examples here before I get into this one. So temperature, right? Our temperature, its set point is 98.6 or 37 degrees Celsius. So if I give everybody a thermometer and we take our temperatures today, everybody's going to be at 98.6 or 37 degrees Celsius, correct? Emma, really? So everybody's going to have a different temperature. Do you know why? Well, that's a pretty good answer, actually. I would like it a little bit more detailed, but you wouldn't know this yet. It's because our metabolism, how we burn our calories and how many we burn, is just like a furnace. Our endocrine system that controls our metabolic rate controls our temperature.
Tell my boyfriend he's fast test levels. I don't know what all the food he is. Is that why when I tell he's always hot?
Yeah. If you have a really fast metabolism, you are going to have a higher temperature. If you don't have one, you're going to be cold all the time. So absolutely, you can tell how good your metabolism is by your temperature. Yeah, so if temperature doesn't really bother you, then that feedback loop is probably working correctly. If you're always hot or you're always cold, then you're on. If you're always hot, you're above that set point. If you're cold, you're below that set point. Yeah. Hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism. Yeah. So so it has to do, that's why I use temperature as an example, because it's going to have to do with your digestive system. Okay? Because that is your metabolic rate. And so, but it's never going to be perfect. It's either going to be slightly above or slightly below, and then your body is going to make an adjustment to keep that within normal range. Now, if it was out of range, then we would call you what? If you're out of that range, you're in a disease state. So, it's just like I said, if your thyroid's really active, you're hyperthyroid. If you're below that, you are hypothyroid. Okay? So that's what really defines it, is whether you're above or below that, quote, normal range of function. But I'm assuming that all of you are not running a fever, so you're here. And if you were ever running a fever, please don't come, because that means you're contagious. And so I'm assuming that even though we measure this and not everyone's at 98.6 or 37 degrees Celsius, that we're all within a normal range of function. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay. So now let's take glucose. So the set point, okay, the set point that we like to see is 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter. Okay, that is where we want to see your blood glucose in fasting. So this is a fasting blood glucose. So I also want to just make sure, because I've seen this on a few tests, when I talk about blood glucose, I sometimes use the same terminology, blood glucose or blood sugar. They mean the same thing. Glucose is sugar. So if I say blood sugar, I'm talking about blood glucose. Okay? So, it's important that I stop and pause here for a second, because I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask my physiology students this. And Matt, don't answer this question, because you should know it. If you don't, shame on you. If I ask you to fast, what am I asking you to do?
Not consume calories.
Not eat or drink anything, right? I really don't want you to eat. I mean, maybe water, but that's about it. So I don't want you eating or drinking anything. Fasting blood glucose, your patient will have not eaten or drank anything for 8 to 12 hours, okay? Preferably 10 to 12 hours, okay? You're not eating. So when you wake up, let's just say that we've given you directions, don't eat anything after 7 o'clock. You're going to come in, we're going to do a fasting blood glucose on you in the morning.
It's like pregnancy.
Tell me what your blood glucose should be in the morning.
Low.
Who said low? Okay. Who else agrees that it's going to be low? Reese looks skeptical. Reese, why do you look so skeptical? Say what?
I don't know. I don't fully know, but I feel like I was inspired.
Okay. Haley, what do you think it's going to be? You're a medic. What's it going to be?
I don't know. I don't test fasting soldiers, so I don't know.
Okay. So, it should be between 70 and 100. It should be normal range. This is why we do the test. Because if you are not within this normal range of function in the morning after 10 to 12 hours of fasting, then your feedback loop is not working. Something's wrong with you. You're either secreting too much insulin, meaning you're going to have really low blood glucose, hypoglycemia, or you're going to be too high and you're going to have hyperglycemia. Remember, anything below or above is a disease state. So what we're testing for in a blood glucose is, are you normal or are you abnormal? Right? That can go in a lot of ways, but are you a normal blood glucose or are you below or above that? That's what we're doing when we're testing for that, okay? Now you got to remember, 80% of your patients you're seeing because of what? Diabetes or the complications due to diabetes. So this is like one of the most important things we'll ever do, is figure out what your blood glucose is and then what that means to your body, okay? That's why we're going to spend so much time on this feedback loop.
So how does this relate to gestational diabetes? And like the test that they do with that?
It's a great question, and I'm going to cover that
Okay.
in just a minute, okay? All right, so everybody with me as to why this should be what it is. Let me just cover that now. So the main test that we give really is, well, we give this a fasting blood glucose anytime you go into the doctor just to get blood work. They're going to have you fast, okay? If you're pregnant, we're going to give you an oral glucose tolerance test, which we do in our physiology course here. We give you an oral glucose tolerance test. And what that is we make you drink this lovely drink. How many of you have been pregnant in here and had to have an oral glucose tolerance test? Anybody? Anybody have children? Okay. So we'll get ready because there's a beautiful orange drink that tastes like, you know, you're drinking Karo syrup, basically. You're just drinking huge amounts of sugar. It's nasty. And what it's going to do is it's going to spike your blood glucose up really high. I mean, it's going to just shoot your blood glucose to the roof. And then they're going to make you sit there for an hour. And we're going to sit there and take blood glucose levels. And if it's not on its way back down within an hour, then your pancreas is not working appropriately. We're going to send you to the hospital and you're going to get diagnosed with basically gestational diabetes. That's an oral glucose tolerance test. Every pregnant woman will get it, every single one. Because if your body does not respond to that high level of sugar and bring it back down within an hour, then we know your pancreas is not working.
But how come it only decides to not work during pregnancy?
Because of other hormones interfering with the hormones I'm about talking to. Yeah. So, kind of a rule in physiology is high hormone level in your bloodstream wins. If you have other hormones that are much higher than your insulin, it will interfere with your insulin levels. Like when you're pregnant, you have high levels of progesterone, estrogen, and so it'll interfere with those other levels.
So is hormonal weight control kind of the same situation? Like, does it affect your blood sugar too?
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it has.
Yeah, that's why people gain weight when they go on those hormones. Yeah, especially Depo is really known for weight gain. Okay, so everybody understand what fasting means now? Okay, so you're going to have to burn that number into your brain. 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter. You got to put the units on there too. Most doctors will want you to be between 70 and 100, but this is the way we teach it in our nursing school, so that's the number I'm sticking with. Okay, so what causes a rise in your blood glucose or your blood sugar levels? So you eat. This is your stimulus for raising your blood glucose. When we eat or consume food or drink, our blood glucose goes up, right? And there are receptors in your pancreas, in your beta cells, and your beta cells detect a rise in blood glucose or in concentration of sugar in your blood. And when they do that, they're also the control center. They're going to secrete insulin. Okay, so insulin is the hormone that is going to bring down your blood glucose. Okay, now the key question here, I want to make sure you understand, is how does it do that? Okay, so if you'll remember from anatomy, right, you have a stimulus, a receptor, control center, and an effector. So what does the effector do? So really, the effectors are the how this is going to drop your blood glucose. Okay, so if you know the components of a feedback loop, effectors are the how. So when you get into physiology or anything else, if you know what the effector is, that's the how of why that thing works the way it does. Okay, why that feedback is working the way it does. So in this case, number one, it's going to drive glucose into the cell for energy. I should really say for the production of energy. So this is where we get right you say you need energy, you go eat, what you're saying is, I'm going to make ATP, which is our energy molecule of our body, and that's done in the cell. It's called cellular respiration or metabolism. So we drive that sugar into the cells to metabolize it and produce energy. So if I'm driving it into my cells, then I am doing what? I'm taking it out of my bloodstream and it's going into the cells. Okay, so it's disappearing from my bloodstream, so it's going to start bringing my blood glucose down. The second thing that happens is that I'm going to store excess in the form of glycogen. We've talked about this word, glycogen. It is a complex carbohydrate, right? It is a storage molecule for glucose. It's just a bunch of individual glucose stuck together. I showed it to you when I went over carbohydrates. This is how animals, like humans, store excess glucose. And it's stored in the liver and muscles. And so if we are storing it, we're taking it out of the bloodstream and we're storing it either in the liver or in our muscles. So our blood glucose does what? It drops. It reverses the trend back to that normal range. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, so now I'm back within my normal range, and I either go to sleep or I do what? What's the opposite stimulus of eating and drinking?
Not eating.
Not eating and drinking. So the stimulus for the bottom part of the loop is really fasting. So all of you were correct in saying, hey, if I'm not eating or drinking, my blood glucose is going to go down. It is. But if it gets below 50, you're going to go into a coma. So you would die. So hopefully you don't wake up every morning really shaky and needing to eat something because you're so shaky and sweaty that you're almost in a diabetic coma. Because that would not be good. That would not be a good way to wake up every day, right? You guys would never make it to class. So we need to bring that back up into a normal range of function, right? So that we feel good when we wake up in the morning. Well, so now the alpha cells in your pancreas secrete another hormone called glucagon. Ooh, that's terrible. So you can, that's a C, okay? So this is glucagon. This is another hormone. This is the other hormone that really controls your blood glucose. This is going to cause a rise in your blood glucose. The key thing is how. How does it do that? Well, go back up here. We stored a bunch of this as glycogen. Why did we store it? So we can use it again, right? So number one down here is glycogen. Glycogen back to glucose. We're just going to take that storage molecule and now we're going to start cleaving off all of those individual glucose molecules and dumping it back into our bloodstream to raise up our blood glucose. Okay? And if we don't have enough storage, then we're going to do something else. We're going to convert non-carbs to carbs. we're into glucose. Now, that's a little hard to understand until you have physiology and you understand cellular respiration, but that's what we do. We're going to take those non-carbohydrates and we're going to put them into this process called cellular respiration, which basically gives us glucose, or a form of glucose that raises our blood glucose levels. Okay? And so now, glucagon causes us to go back within that normal range of function. So in the morning, we should be between those things. Now, I got the question in the last section, and I think it's a great question. I'm surprised someone in here hasn't asked me yet. And that is fasting good for you? Or is intermediate fasting, which is a big thing right now, is it good for you? And the answer to that is yes. Okay? Depending on a couple of things. When you eat that carbohydrate, what type of carbohydrate you're eating, and then how long your fasting period is. Okay? But I will tell you, overall, we know that fasting is good for you. When you give your cells a chance to repair themselves, that's a good thing. So they need a break from food. Unfortunately, in America, we don't take much of a break. We're grazers because we have access to a lot of food, right? We got vending machines everywhere. And what did I say about the cephalic phase of digestion? We walk across the vending machine and go, oh, I'm kind of hungry. It's going to give me something to eat, right? So we snack all day long, right? We sit in front of TVs and we snack. That's not how we're supposed to eat. So what you're doing is, throughout the day, you're doing what? Spiking your blood glucose all day long. That's a terrible way. We want to not do that, okay? So if you're always, and this is what processed foods do, they're going to sit there and spike your blood glucose tremendously, right? So let's talk about that part of it, because that's really the key thing. Because on the last test, for those two that are sitting there and haven't taken the test yet, pay attention. So I asked a question about what's the difference between fast and slow carbs. And you guys some of you kind of got it. I think one of you really got it, but one's not enough. We got to get everybody to get it. So I'm going to draw up another little graph here. And if I have, this is my blood glucose when I eat food, right? And it's a simple or fast carb. What I mean by that fast is it's going to spike my blood glucose really fast, right? Quick energy. So this is my candy bar, my Coke, just sugar. It's going to really spike my blood glucose, right? And I keep telling you guys I want you to eat complex or slow, because what is that going to do to your blood glucose levels? A gradual rise, correct? So everybody will tell you, and I just got a new nutrition book today, and the rep's coming to see me tomorrow, and I opened up this book and I'm looking at, calories in, calories out is how you lose weight. So that immediately, that book is out for me. And so here's what I've been trying to teach you, because all these books are going to go, well, it's about calories in, calories out, and it's about this rise in blood glucose. No, it's about the rise in insulin. Insulin is what we care about, not necessarily the rise in blood glucose, because we need glucose, right? I need to run my brain. I need to run my body. I need the glucose. What I'm worried about and what causes disease is the insulin. Because if I have a really sharp increase in blood glucose, what's my insulin level do?
Raises.
I gotta spike it higher than that to take care of all that glucose to start driving it into the cells and storing it, right? So that's what I'm concerned with. What if I have a gradual rise in this? Then I'm going to get a what? Smaller rise in my insulin. So, let me explain this to you again through Diet Coke, which we're going to do, Maddie, in physiology. We're going to have people drink Diet Coke, and what we're going to see is it's going to drive their blood glucose down, okay? Because of what I taught you in here, is when you put Diet Coke into your mouth, what does that do? It's 200 to 600 times sweeter than sugar. So your brain is telling your stomach, holy crap, I am about to get a lot of sugar. So what do you think happens in the pancreas? You secrete a whole bunch of insulin, right? And so now you get this huge spike in insulin. Is there any glucose to drive into the cell? No. So what do you do with all that glucose? Nothing. And your body goes, well, I don't need this. I'm going to downregulate all the receptors in my pancreas, and I become what? Insulin resistant. Now I'm insulin resistant and I have type 2 diabetes. This is what processed food is doing. Right? It's simple. It's spiking your blood glucose all day long, and you're always secreting all this insulin, so your body is not supposed to do that. So your body goes, I'm tired of spending all this time spiking my blood or spiking insulin levels, so it downregulates, you become insulin resistant. And now you have type 2 diabetes. Okay? So that's the key thing, is we want to keep you from becoming insulin resistant. And if you're doing this to your body all the time, you're going to become insulin resistant. It's the food that does that to us, because that's not normal. Processed food is not food, right? If you've listened, there are over 600,000 types of food in our grocery store. Can you grow 600,000 types of food in your garden? Yeah, because that stuff ain't food. We make it up. It's just corn and soybeans that we put flavorings in, and then we call it food. It's not food. It's fake. So that's what's causing all of those spikes all the time. So we didn't see these diabetes levels back in the day before processed foods. It's the food, folks, that is causing that.
Is that what causes the crash? Like after I eat like anything fast food, I'm so
Exactly, because I'm going to secrete so much insulin that this is going to do what?
drop.
It's going to drop, and a feedback loop tells you it's going to do what? Drop below that normal range. So now you're what? Oh, I'm hungry. Crap, I need energy. So what are you going to do? You're going to go eat more crap, and it's going to, right? I mean, you are, because now you're tired, you've crashed, and you're like, okay, well, guess what? I guess got to go eat another candy bar to get some energy back. And it puts us, and it's going to make you crave that. So are you starting to make the link now? It's the food, guys, that keeps spiking your insulin so high, and then it makes you hungry. And then you go out and eat more carbs. And you eat simple carbs. That's what does it. Okay? That's what's causing you to gain weight. It's that cycle. That's why now do you understand why fiber is so important? If you were just eating a high fiber diet, you wouldn't be getting that. And a high fiber diet is what? Oh yeah, whole foods, real food, fruits, vegetables. That's why we keep telling you to eat fruits and vegetables, because they got fiber in them and they're not going to spike your blood glucose. The problem is what? They don't taste as good as donuts and cookies. You see why I started off with the whole food choice thing? It's the food, folks, that is giving us diabetes. It's making us become insulin resistant because we're always secreting so much of that. Does everybody get that? Because That's the crux of why we're in so much trouble. Because of those processed foods that are fast. They're simple carbs. They're already pre-digested. We don't have to do anything. We just eat them and is everybody starting to get that? That's the problem. That's what you have to be able to explain to your patients. That's why we have to eat fruits and vegetables. It's the fiber that allows us that slow, gradual rise, not only in blood glucose, but more importantly, in insulin, so that we don't become insulin resistant.
So, my cousin has type 4 diabetes,
Uh-huh.
and last week she went in ketoacidosis
Ooh.
because her pump kind of wasn't working, so she was not being able to like give herself insulin to match her sugar.
Correct.
So she had to spend like 3 to 4 days in the hospital.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the difference between type 1 and type 2 next time. Type 1, it's an autoimmune disease. Her pancreas does not secrete.
Yeah, she got it from my hospital.
Yeah. So she doesn't secrete any insulin. So the beta cells in her pancreas don't work. Type 2, which 90% of the diabetics are type 2, because only 10% of the population is type 1. Type 2 is caused by that, insulin resistance. And again, I think I've made my case of why there's so much type 2 diabetes. It's because we eat crap. Okay? And then we get these huge spikes in insulin that our body can't deal with, and we become resistant to it.
So these people that are fasting and then only eat one meal a day or whatever,
Yeah.
is that making them spike in insulin because they're eating so much food only at one point?
Yeah, if you're going to do intermittent fasting, again, it's the timing of that. So you want to do it in the morning, right? And then you want to eat another meal in the afternoon, and then you want to go for a longer time at night. That gives you a chance to repair. But again, if you're only eating one meal a day, that's terrible for your body. I would rather you have like 5 meals, really small ones, because it's the same thing that I taught you with medicine going through your liver. What we really want to see in your body is that constant levels of glucose would be nice, because then we have that, right? So if you're spreading your meals out and you're eating smaller meals, so if you have thyroid problems, your doctor is going to put you on this type of diet. They're going to say you need to eat 5 meals a day. Small, not the same size that we're eating now. Take a meal that you're eating, divide that up, and what are we doing? We're keeping what? A constant level of blood glucose in our system so that we don't do this all the time. So it's much better to eat small, more, and frequent meals. So less amount, but more frequent. That keeps your blood glucose more steady. Because again, guys, this is if you want to lose weight, this is what it's about. It's the amount of insulin that you are doing. Okay? It's you got to get away from the processed food. That's why you're gaining weight. It's the processed food, because you're getting that constant spike all the time and your body's just always trying to keep up. It's just terrible for your body. And that's what makes us gain weight. So if we can convert our patients to eat more complex carbohydrates, that's why I hounded you on that fiber, knowing what fiber does. Fiber is so good for you in so many ways. But the main thing it does is that controls your blood glucose. Okay? Everybody kind of getting it now. All right? So you're going to get basically the same questions I gave you this time on the test in this next test. Just a little bit deeper, but it's the same question basically. If you understand this, then you've got it.